Hello everyone, welcome to the Green Man channel for another Friday night album review, and tonight's a big one because it's the 17th studio album by Maiden that I am tackling tonight. Their album Senjutsu, released on Parlophone Records. It is 10 tracks and 81 minutes in length, and this follows on from Book of Souls from 2015, which was also a two-sided album and a pretty long album as well. So they're continuing their trend of recent years in giving us really kind of quite long albums with epic progressive kind of metal length tracks. And on this one, the last two tracks on the second disc, on the second side, are all over 10 minutes long, and I'll come on to that shortly. So I'm going to start with some positives from this album, which is, I think it was well produced. One thing I really like is, considering this band used three guitarists, it would be easy for, I think, the production to be a bit muffled when you've got three guitarists all playing, and I think that what is really good in the mix is that those solos always lay nicely on top, so it's kind of not, you can always hear them nice and clearly, is what I'm trying to say, and I think that is well achieved on this album, and probably from the most recent of Iron Maiden's outputs as well. It's a good feature of this album. I liked as well that this album wasn't that it was introducing us to, it feels distinctive. It doesn't feel identical to other Iron Maiden albums, although there were moments in this album I thought, oh yeah, that sounds like I've heard that before. And I did get a Matter of Life and Death feel on, a couple of the tracks, not on all of them, but it still felt enough like it was a distinctive Iron Maiden album. So I'm going to get now into a bit more into the tracks and what I enjoyed and perhaps what I didn't quite enjoy as much from this latest release from Iron Maiden. The first track was pretty cool. I enjoyed this one. A fairly long track, but this one I think was relatively mid-tempo, but it did enough for me to keep my interest. I liked the atmosphere of this one. Felt a fresh, this one definitely felt like a fresher Iron Maiden track than other recent ones I've heard from them, and I really liked even a couple of light touches of synth in here in places, which I also really enjoyed as something a little bit sort of different towards the end of this one. So the title track, good opener for me. Now the second track, which was a single, I really liked. This one, Stratego. This was the kind of Maiden that I would, I really like and would quite like to see a bit more of in a way. And it doesn't it's 5 minutes long. I really like the Bruce moments in this song. His vocal variations and everything in this one I really liked, and he uses his range really well and I like this Maiden song. Doesn't outstay its welcome, packs a punch for me. I enjoyed the second track a lot. Writing on the Wall again was another one I really liked, actually. So far so good. And the soloing on Writing on the Wall is fantastic, and again exemplifies that these guys have been around a long time. They know what they're doing, and you always get a good guitar solo from one of those three guitarists, whether it's Smith, Murray, or Yannick. You always get a good solo in there. Lost in a Lost World was where I started to I enjoyed, actually, I love the start of this track. It reminds me a bit of a Roger Waters era Pink Floyd beginning to a Pink Floyd track. That's the first 2 minutes, and then after that it went a bit more into traditional Iron Maiden, but for me this one in the middle of the track just dragged on a bit and felt a little too familiar to me. Not a bad song, and I did enjoy those moments at the start and the end of the track where you kind of had that slightly Pink Floyd vibe, but Lost in the Lost World for me probably wasn't one of my more favourite tracks on the album, if I'm being honest. Days of Future Past was a good one. The Time Machine I enjoyed. I quite enjoyed this one. There was a very familiar lead, and it's that Iron Maiden lead. Now I probably should have brought my guitar along so I could say what lead it is, but it's the one that goes da 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 da. and it keeps doing that, and that kind of a leads. I'm sure I've heard it before as well, and it just got a bit jarring in the Time Machine. But apart from that, I did quite like the Time Machine. It was a good song. Darkest Hour, kind of more of a ballad, but a really good one. Very much likes that. Now the last two tracks is where I felt this album did struggle a bit to keep me engaged, and my attention got a bit lost, if I'm being honest. Death of the Celts, some really good soloing going on, but it just felt lengthy. I just felt the length of this track. And the same with the Parchment. The Parchment's a really quite a long track here, nearly about 13 minutes in length. But it just goes on and on a bit, particularly after a sort of few minutes of the song. Struggled a bit with that, therefore. But now Hell on Earth is an absolutely fantastic one, and finishes the album on a real high. So you almost kind of, for me, I almost kind of forgive those preceding two tracks, which I struggled a bit more with. There's some really good moments in Hell on Earth that I thought, were made that epic length much more worthy, and I thoroughly enjoyed that ending. So overall, where do I rate this Maiden album? Well, I think for me at the moment, and I might have to run to the hills. Hilarious. I might have to run to the hills after this. But I was saying this because I have to say, I think for me, and I'm a prog person, I love prog, but even though I love prog, I feel like this album's length was a bit too sort of noticeable. It was a bit too noticeable. So to be honest, I think at the moment, I'm going to give this album still a pretty decent score, right? I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 this time. I can change my mind, so it's not necessarily a permanent writing on the wall. Oh God, what am I doing at the moment? That one was actually unintentional. So anyway, 7 out of 10 for me. I think it does have potential to go on me, so I will say that before you all go insane. But I do think it's a good album overall. I think it's interesting. I definitely think it's interesting as something a little different, and it does seem distinctive as an Iron Maiden album. I will certainly give credit for Maiden for doing something which does seem distinctive. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this album review. Feel free to check out my other album reviews, including a top 10 songs I recently did of Iron Maiden, if you're interested in that. Otherwise, hope you all have great weekends, and I will see you next time. Take care, everyone. Bye.